Ever had a toothache that made you want to pull your hair out? Now imagine that, but without Novocaine, sterile instruments, or even a basic understanding of oral hygiene. We're exploring the brutal realities of medieval royal dentistry, where even kings and queens endured excruciating procedures that would make today's dental visits feel like a spa day. You won't believe the lengths they went to just to keep a few teeth in their heads. I'm your host, Cloak Testament, and this is The Time-Worn Record, where we deep dive into the most mysterious corners of history, unveiling the truths or myths that have been hidden or forgotten. What could possibly be hidden behind the curtain today? For most of us, a trip to the dentist is inconvenient, maybe even nerve-wracking. But there's a strange comfort in knowing that anesthesia, antibiotics, and specialized tools exist. In the Middle Ages, however, the world of dentistry was a blend of desperation, superstition, and sheer agony. Royals may have dined from golden plates and sipped from jewel-encrusted goblets, but when it came to their mouths, even the crown on their heads couldn't protect them from the misery festering between their teeth. What makes it worse is that their diets, full of rich meats, wines, and sugary delights imported from across the world, made tooth decay not only common, but almost inevitable. A king's smile might sparkle in a painted portrait, but behind that carefully crafted image was often a rotting mess of pain. In medieval courts, dental care wasn't entrusted to trained specialists because such a thing hardly existed. Instead, barbers and blacksmiths doubled as tooth pullers. Yes, the same man who sharpened your blade or shaved your beard might also yank out your molar with the same iron tongs he used at his forge. Imagine the shriek of iron against enamel, the crack of bone, the warm gush of blood, and no possibility of antiseptic care afterward. Infection was common, sepsis was a death sentence, and there was nothing regal about the stinking breath of a monarch who had just endured such torture. But the brutality didn't end with pulling. For the royals, who feared appearing weak or grotesque, there were countless bizarre attempts to stop the decay before it reached the point of extraction. Some remedies read like a twisted recipe book. Crocodile bile mixed with vinegar was smeared across aching gums. Powdered worms were sprinkled over cavities, in the hope that their mystical properties might consume the rot. Honey, herbs, and spices were packed into teeth not for sweetness, but in a desperate attempt to numb the agony. In more extreme cases, ground bone or even ashes of burned animals were applied, the belief being that the strength of these materials could transfer into the suffering tooth. None of it worked, of course, except to make the pain worse or the infection spread faster. And then came the prayers. Priests often insisted that toothache was a punishment from God, a sign of sin festering within the body. To cure it, sufferers might hold relics to their jaw, mutter incantations, or pay for masses to be sung in their name. One common belief was that the toothache was caused by tiny worms, burrowing inside the gums, gnawing away at the enamel. To rid themselves of these imagined pests, royals submitted to remedies designed to smoke the worms, outburning herbs placed in the mouth until the gums blistered. Can you picture a king dressed in ermine robes choking on fumes, while his courtiers pretended not to notice the tears running down his cheeks? That was royal dignity under siege by tooth decay. The psychological toll of such suffering cannot be underestimated. In a world where monarchs were expected to embody strength, power, and divine favor, the reality of being brought low by a single rotten tooth was humiliating. Chronic pain frayed tempers, disrupted sleep, and sometimes altered the course of history. It is whispered that kings and queens made rash decisions in the throes of their agony, lashing out at courtiers or rushing into wars, simply because they could not think clearly through the haze of constant pain. A toothache might not appear in the chronicles of battles and treaties, but it gnawed away at the mental stability of rulers, who had to endure it while keeping a regal facade. Some royals became so desperate that they willingly submitted to treatments more terrifying than the disease itself. There are accounts of heated needles, being plunged into gums to burn out the decay. Others drank potions laced with mercury, arsenic, or lead substances that offered no relief but slowly poisoned the body. Queen Elizabeth II, centuries later, famously kept her blackened teeth hidden behind closed lips, her courtiers pretending not to see. But long before her reign, her medieval predecessors were already battling the same invisible enemy with far fewer tools to hide their suffering. Consider the contradiction. Monarchs, who held absolute power over life and death, could be undone by the smallest abscess. Their enemies often noted their bad breath or swollen jaws, mocking them in secret while bowing in public. For a king to smell foul was to lose authority, to show weakness was to invite rebellion. That's why so many remedies, however bizarre, were attempted not just to ease pain, but to preserve an image of invincibility. In portraits and public appearances, the smile had to be maintained, even if behind the scenes, teeth were falling out one by one. One particularly chilling aspect of medieval dentistry was its lack of boundaries between the practical and the mystical. A tooth might be yanked with iron pliers, and then a charm tied around the neck for protection against the return of the pain. Herbal paste might be applied, followed by whispered incantations to saints. In some courts, astrologers were consulted before extractions, ensuring the stars aligned before blood was spilled. The mingling of science, superstition, and sheer brutality created a nightmare that today's dental patients would scarcely believe. And yet in all this suffering, a strange truth emerges. The royals were no different from their subjects when it came to tooth decay. Their crowns might have been forged of gold, but inside their mouths, the same rot festered as in the peasants who toiled in the fields. Pain does not bow to status. It humiliated kings, it humbled queens, and it made even the most powerful rulers in the world whimper in the dark like ordinary men and women. Looking back, it's tempting to laugh at the absurdity of powdered worms and crocodile bile, or to recoil at the idea of barbers doubling as dentists. But it's also a reminder of how fragile human life once was, even at the top. We take for granted that a dentist today can fix a cavity in under an hour, restore a broken smile with sterile instruments, and numb us so completely that we barely feel a thing. For medieval monarchs, every toothache was a battle, every extraction a gamble with death, and every remedy a shot in the dark. The brutal dentistry of medieval kings tells us more than just a tale of rotten teeth. It's a story about the limits of wealth and power, the desperation of human suffering, and the bizarre lengths people will go to escape pain. It's about the masks we wear, whether a golden crown or a forced regal, smile and the hidden agonies behind them. So the next time you find yourself complaining about the dentist's drill, remember the kings and queens who endured fire, iron, and superstition just to keep a few teeth in their heads. Suddenly, the hum of a dental office doesn't seem quite so terrifying after all.